Go ahead and push, Linda. Linda, reach down.
Oh! Oh, my sweet. Oh, my sweet.
Birth Happens was an exhibition at the San Lorenzo Valley Museum in Felton, California. Each of the following women have played a significant role in the popularization of home births across the United States. Why did these women in the 1970s fight to make home birth a safe, legal, and informed decision for mothers? And what does that mean today? This story follows the web of connections and developments unique to Santa Cruz. The story begins with two women and the differences they experienced during the birth of their first children.
One of the big impetuses for the home birth movement nationally and internationally was a book written by a local midwife named Raven Lang. Raven lived in Ben Lomond on Alba Road. She was one of the earliest midwives who started doing births after a terrible experience of birth in Stanford Hospital. And she began to help women who asked her to help them. They called her their midwife, and she became their midwife.
I went through a clinic experience, so I thought educated. And when I went to the hospital, which was just a few hours before his birth, I was violated over and over again by the ritual of the hospital. Clearly, I had gone in, I thought educated and ready, but I had come out as bewildered as ever. And I changed my focus from art into the focus of birth.
Roberta told me that she knew of a woman named Diane. She had been helping her clan of women have babies at home. And within a very short amount of time, I was visited by a lady, a young woman my age. I was 25. She was the first real hippie that I met, and I was fascinated by her. I asked her a lot of questions. Is it very painful? What did you find? And she said, I don't know what you're talking about. So we were like speaking two different languages. You know, I was speaking my experience of an episioproctotomy, and she was speaking of hippies having their babies at home without any intervention. We were begging for information. Doctors had excluded us completely. At this point in time, throughout North America, there was this hunger, this ravenous hunger for midwifery knowledge.
I never set out to break a law. I wasn't rebelling against anything. I was doing what had to be done in the moment. When you're going to a home birth, you're not going to break a law. You're going to help a woman give birth to a baby.
We were riding that wave of desire to feel connected with each other, feel connected to the earth, and feel connected as human beings. Birth came out of that, like, gosh, you're really going to go into a hospital and be drugged and draped and cut and pulled and poked and prodded for the most human of experiences, the very most human.
This is pre-social media. It's in most places illegal. And so it was dangerous to try to network. It was dangerous to publicize what they were doing. I mean, you have these kind of isolated pockets of consciousness, realizing we do not have to go into a hospital and get handcuffed. We have a choice here. We could do something. We could teach ourselves.
As a result of the desire for knowledge and change, Raven Lang, Kate Boland, and others in the early 1970s discovered new and experimental ways of relating as communities with shared interests. Home births were occurring across Santa Cruz County with growing frequency, and women began attending each other's home births to learn.
A group of 3 traditional lay midwives that were practicing in Santa Cruz, in the city of Santa Cruz. They had a birth center. So these midwives were providing what at that time would be called well woman care.
Our group of young birth workers opened what was called the Santa Cruz Birth Center, the first birth center in North America. What we proposed to do as a collective was to give childbirth education, pre- and postnatal care, labor and delivery counseling, and catch babies to families who were choosing home births. We did all of this work freely, without a charge or expectation of payment. So the birth center was born. Handmade notices about it went up in laundromats and health food stores, and the power of word of mouth was put into action.
And the very first day that the birth center opened, the people came in from the time we opened our door until the end of the day without stopping. Santa Cruz County, which was sort of a sleepy retirement county, was getting inundated with youthful people. And with that, of course, there was birth. I didn't have enough time or the right place to teach more people. And so I began to pass these photographs around because I think a photograph is worth 1,000 words, and I could see the power they had when I would show them to pregnant women. It was like, whoa, if she could do this, I could do this. And whoa, look at how happy she looked. I mean, they were so beautiful and encouraging and empowering to pregnant women that I thought, okay, I'm going to put them together and make a pamphlet. It was a new world, and we needed to have our own language and our own information. And so when I started to collect the photographs and ask the women if they would write their stories, because when they would tell them, they were so powerful, and everyone said yes. And then I began to gather it. I actually put that book together in something like 3 weeks. I contacted everybody that I'd met through both Canada and the US. And I said, tell me the names of the people's clinics there that want this book. And I was able to send it nationally at my own cost as a gift to each clinic, so that the birth book had immediate impact within North America.
One of the other labor and delivery nurses brought Raven Lang's book in, and we all looked at it. It's like, whoa, that was so radical. It was sort of like, like you were describing communism versus democracy or something like that. It was like, whoa, I mean, that's just beyond the pale.
After reading the stories in the birth book, I was so moved. They were so honest, and the pictures displayed that also.
After Raven Lang's birth book was written, published, and distributed nationwide, what is considered to be one of the first birth seminars was convened in Ben Lomond, deep in the Santa Cruz Mountains.
Raven had a meeting up on Elba Road, which was this birth seminar. And the birth seminar had incredible influence on obstetrics in America because it really hit Santa Cruz. Celeste brought Dr. Anzalone. They went back and made a birth center and community hospital.
And Don Creevy attended it.
attended that. That's one of those pivotal events where some heads were really turned and hearts were moved and practices changed.
Celeste Phillips passed away in 2019. The following is an excerpt from her interview in the book Hip Santa Cruz, Volume 3.
When you all had the meeting up at Ben Lomond, I thought this is what Dr. Anselo needs to see. He really was interested and he really cared about decent care for women in childbirth. I asked him to come to the meeting, and by God, he came. Oh, that was a great meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it really accomplished a tremendous amount, Working as a change agent from inside, especially in an institution like a hospital, you've got to have helpers. You can't do it alone. And helpers have to have authority. has to be the boss, has to be people who are respected. So I always sought out helpers. And if I was teaching over the hill, I would look for a Dr. Anzalone. I would look for someone who was open and who loved what he did or her, she did. There weren't many she's doctors.
No, they weren't.
Mostly men. The
Yeah.
change came from inside. But it came from outside too. You know, without the meeting under the dome, without the births occurring at home, we might still be struggling.
I was at that time living with an obstetrician named Don Creevy, who was doing backup for home births in 5 counties. He had trained at the University of Minnesota during a time where the head of the Department of Obstetrics believed that birth was a normal physiological process and that women should be able to have normal births, natural births. And his then wife had one. He was very enamored of the midwives from Santa Cruz up to Berkeley. And they could call him at any time of day or night and get a second opinion from him. So he was the one that first introduced me to midwives in Santa Cruz.
While the mid-1970s saw an increasing amount of alternative lifestyles, scrutiny of these practices and developing trends also grew. These practices fell under a gray legal area and weren't widely publicly acceptable.
I would say that the next part of this story actually is Kate Boland's arrest and how that fits into midwifery politics. It was critical because that decision by the California Supreme Court that for the first time defined midwifery as an illegal practice of medicine came about as a result of Kate's arrest.
On March 6, 1974, during the Birth Center Prenatal Clinic Day, 2 cars pulled up. 6 men in suits got out and ran between my house and the neighbors. They were plainclothes cops. I heard the loud knock on the door, front and back, and the shout, "Open up, it's the police." So I was arrested, and I went all the way to the California Supreme Court, defending my right to be a midwife and attend the women who chose me, and defending my right as a woman to give birth with who I chose. I was pregnant with my second child, and I stood before the Supreme Court, and all in black, the 9 judges, 7 of whom were born at home, and they ruled against us. And I remember just standing there, behind my belly thinking, you can't control this.
These midwives have influenced hospital birth in some very positive ways.
While Raven Lang's 1968 painful hospital birth experience may now be uncommon, the ultimate decision-making powers around the birthing process today are still unclear. Many alternatives to hospital birth are available today, including formally qualified midwives, and more information about home birth is available than ever before. Santa Cruz County has unique home birth rates as compared to the rest of the United States.
So I never chose to be an outlaw, but I was born in a time when midwifery was systematically made illegal in this country. I did become a nurse midwife, but I practiced for 45 years, 35 as a nurse midwife. Never one day was I fully legal because of the requirement of physician supervision, and the malpractice insurance companies forbid the doctors to, quote, supervise us. We have, I think, the 7th bill in the legislature right now to remove supervision from the law, and the first one was written in 1976. So I'm still struggling. I hope I see that I'm still licensed and legal before I die.
And it gets to the larger issue of what is birth? To what extent can it be something that's medical and spiritual and meaningful and all of those things? And how do you create an environment where all of those things can intermingle to the extent that the mother wants that experience.
The ongoing challenges inherent in America around medical care are vast and remain unsolved. Medical workers and hospital systems have been strained to capacity during the global COVID-19 pandemic. Are there some solutions we have available that have always been around, just obscured over time and hidden a bit below the surface?
I couldn't believe the number of times I would open up a book that was written in, 1974 and think, this is the same, we are just back in a cycle. I mean, some things are different, but some of the things are like we're having to reteach ourselves stuff that was around 40, 50 years ago. There's still risk today, but there is there's a structure in place and a greater acceptance of some of the things that in the 70s just weren't there.
Today, I could legally deliver a baby in the state of California without a supervising physician. The entire time I practiced, I was illegal still. So now, it's gone up and down, and nurse midwifery is a very big disappointment to me personally. They are totally medicalized. Practicing in the hospital, they have protocols they have to follow and obey, and they are not in charge of their clients. But the interesting thing is currently the nurse midwives are taking first call for the births, and they're calling obstetricians only when they need them. So they're going to get more power the next few years if we get enough nurse midwives to cover all the shifts, because they're exhausted now. They are working their butts off. And so I have hope that their practice will become more midwifery directed.
When I look back at us young women fighting for the right to attend women during such an important time in our lives as birth, I am once again fired up with anger and disbelief. I tell this story because it needs to be recorded for young women who are our future and who will want to understand how we got to where we are now and what they can do about it. Whether it was the suffragettes fighting for the right to vote, or the right to contraception and abortion, or today's women who fight for the right to birth in the manner and place of their choice, or the rights for freedom in reproductive health care, which still includes the fiery topic of contraception and abortion, the fight sadly and tragically lingers.
There are now places where you have alternative birth centers, freestanding birth centers that are not connected to any hospital. And those are an advance that began, again, with this movement that we had in the 70s. So while, yes, things are better, also things aren't so much better at all. And I hope that any of you who are hearing this for the first time will keep this in mind as you have your babies or as you help others, your loved ones, in going forth and having their babies. This really needs to be considered carefully when making choices about how to give birth. Thank you.
Hello. Hello. Check to see if she's a girl or boy. It's a little girl.
The house we share is the color of blue. It's an old place, just the paint is new, but the foundation's strong. And like our love, it's gonna last for a long, long time. In an earthquake or a heartbreak, we'll pull through. In the middle of spring, the stork dropped in and brought to our house a real whirlwind. But she's wonderful and strong, and like our love, she'll be growing for a long, long time. Terrible twos to high-heeled shoes, we'll pull through. Now there's a brand new voice that starts my day, telling me she's ready to get up and play. And the spirit in her song is the spirit of life, Let's sing it for a long, long time, in a hurricane, through joy and pain.